Let's bring in foreign affairs opinion columnist for the New York Times, Thomas Friedman. He's the author of the best-selling book titled From Beirut to Jerusalem. It's good to have you on this morning.
You know, Thomas, I don't have much of a life, so I remember op-eds that people wrote 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I remember, you know, Maureen Dowd's op-ed before George W. Bush was elected president, talking about what determines a presidency is not what you planned for, but what you didn't plan for. But I remember in the spring of 2003, you writing an op-ed after the invasion of Iraq, talking to an Iranian saying, you picked the wrong country. Why didn't you come here? Which is quite interesting. Of the three axis of evil countries, we picked the one without nuclear ambitions in 2003. I'm curious your thoughts about the death of Khomeini, the place that Iran has had in the world since 1979, and whether this war could end up having a significant impact on the world and the region, in spite of any missteps that we make politically.
Well, Joe, we're in day three, so you know, obviously it's enormously early in this whole enterprise. But you know, on the one side, Joe, I would say that there is nothing that would improve the prospects of the Middle East to tilt it more toward a region of inclusion and integration and away from resistance than a change of regime in Iran. And there's no question about if we had a regime in Iran that was focused on enabling the Iranian people to realize their full potential, and giving them the resources to do that, not investing those resources in militias all over the region, the Middle East would be a better place. Getting from here to that regime through war is another, completely another question. I think as we sit here literally today on day three, it seems to me that the best case scenario is that the combination of the decapitation of the leadership in Iran so far and the war and the pressures of war produces what I would call an Islamic Republic 2.0. Not some mass uprising of the people, but where the reformist wing, and there has been a reformist wing in the Islamic Republic, basically is able to come to the fore now in alliance with maybe members of the IRCG and the Iranian military, and they negotiate a deal with Trump that goes a long way toward, you know, limiting or restricting its nuclear capability and limiting its malign influences around the region. So right now, Joe, on day three, that seems to be, to me, to be the best case scenario.
Could you, Thomas, for us, could you give our viewers that may not have followed Iran as closely and the region as closely over the past 25, 30 years, 40 years as you have, could you give them a quick primer on Iran, how it has an extraordinary history, has had an extraordinary culture going back thousands of years, and sort of the discordant nature of so many of the educated people that live in Iran with this savage theocratic leadership that they've been strapped with since 1979?
Well, you know, Joe, I came to Beirut as a reporter in, of all years, 1979. And here's what happened my first year on the job. The Iranian Revolution, the takeover of the Grand Mosque in Mecca in Saudi Arabia, which, by the way, was as important as the Iranian Revolution, which I'll explain in a second, the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, the signing of the Camp David Treaty, the opening of a port in Dubai, a little port called Jebel Ali, by Queen Elizabeth II, and the meltdown of a nuclear facility called 3 Mile Island. All those things happened in 1979, and I was there in Beirut with David Ignatius on my little typewriter. That was a device, if you pressed the key, it created pressure on a roller and printed a letter. So my view, Joe, is that the Middle East, born in 1979, a gigantic struggle between forces of inclusion and resistance, the globalization that came out of Dubai, and the resistance that came out of Iran. That Middle East is the Middle East I ended up, little did I know, covering for the next 40 plus years. Now, back in the mid-2010s, a leader emerged in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, who reversed 1979, because what happened after the takeover of the Grand Mosque in Mecca is Saudi Arabia made a giant right turn toward promoting the most puritanical form of Islam. And frankly, that right turn ended up in 9/11. MBS came along with all his faults and with all the terrible killing of Khashoggi, but nevertheless, he reversed 1979. He brought Saudi Arabia back from that radical Islamist track into a country focused on its own development and modernization. And that's affected the whole Muslim world, and it's affected also the Gulf hugely. To me, the stakes now in Iran, the upside of this, if it doesn't descend into total chaos, is you get the reversal of 1979 in Iran. You get the reversal of 1979 in Iran and in Saudi Arabia, and you have the prospects, the possibility of a much more integrated, inclusive Middle East. Getting from here to there is going to be hugely difficult. I do not have a lot of confidence in this administration's ability to navigate this moment. They're good at creating leverage. They're not very good at using it, I think, in a sophisticated way. But that, to me, those are the stakes. You know, Iran is a great civilization. I believe this regime is not organic to its history. And if this regime were to change or to be replaced, it would unlock enormous potential. Always remember, Joe, on 9/11, the one country, I believe maybe the only country in the Middle East that held candlelight vigils for America on 9/11 were in Iran spontaneously. It is a naturally pro-Western country for a lot of the people.
They did. And again, just explaining to people that are watching, when I first got in Congress in 1994, I come from a Navy town, Pensacola. You couldn't talk to an admiral in Pensacola. You couldn't talk to a general in the Pentagon that didn't have a positive story about working with Iranians in joint training exercises. Same with the intel communities. It was, so many generals and admirals who worked with Iran before that revolution saw it as such a grave tragedy because they loved working with Iranians because they were so professional, so brilliant. By the way, Mika, I know you have the next question for Tom. I've got to tell Tom the bad news. I'm going to be calling him a lot because I've been writing a book on 1979, Tom, because my operating theory, much like yours for the past year, well, for most of my lifetime, is that 1979 actually as a year, we always focus on 1968, 1945. 1979 as a year defines who we are today, foreign policy-wise, more than any other year in recent memory. And you could even see the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union because of the invasion of Afghanistan at the end of that year.
But let's go to 2026 with 1979 in mind, Tom. And a lot of people are asking, what is the plan for post-regime change? And if there isn't one, what are the potential consequences?
Yeah, I'm very worried about that, Mika, and I've listened to the show this morning, all your guests. When you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And I'm just so worried about the word that Richard Haass used earlier this morning, the complete indiscipline of this administration. President dialing for dollars yesterday with reporters from all over the world. That's time that wasn't used sitting with aides, figuring out a message to the American people, frankly. And the process of figuring out a coherent public statement, that's called thinking. That's how you hope they would have done that before. But that worries me. What worries me is that these guys are good at starting things. I don't think they're good at finishing things. This is not the A-team of American foreign policy, and you've got an undisciplined president, and we're in the biggest of all wars. So, Joe and Mika, when President Obama and Secretary Clinton decapitated Libya with Gaddafi, one column at the time, headline was, "Please make my president lucky," because I don't think this is a great idea. And so I hope we're lucky in Libya. We were not lucky in Libya. We decapitated the regime and we unleashed disorder. Because in the Middle East, always remember, the opposite of autocracy is not democracy. The natural opposite is disorder. And so to fight against that, you do not want disorder in Libya is one thing. because Libya imploded. But disorder in Iran is something completely different. It would explode. So I really think this is a time for deep thinking. It would also be nice to have a few allies, maybe now having told the rest of the world and our allies to go to hell, for a year on tariffs, this would be a really good time to have some trusted allies.
Yeah, Tom, to that point, Europe very cool on this, at least for now. Let's talk, though, about the region there, a region you know so well. Iran is striking. At moments, it feels indiscriminately, other times targeted, like targeting civilian hotels and like in some of the major capitals there in the Gulf, striking potentially some energy infrastructure as well. But by doing so, what do you think happens next? Is that simply going to push the region more and more aligned with the U.S. efforts or descend into that chaos you're talking about?
Jonathan, I think that Iran's strategy, they think Trump's soft underbelly, because they've seen this before on tariffs, is the stock market and the economy. And Iran, I think, wants to create as much chaos, turmoil in global oil markets and global financial markets. They think that will freak Trump out and make him more vulnerable in negotiations. So I think that's the strategy. Lash out in every direction. Drive the price of oil, as high as you can, drive the Dow Jones Industrial Average down as far as you can, and hope that Trump, as in the past, will chicken out.
All right. Foreign Affairs opinion columnist for the New York Times, Thomas Friedman. Thank you very much. And you can read his latest op-ed online right now.